From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your MTN Noon News on your Friday. I'm Augusta McDonnell. Let's get right to our top story today. The Montana Department of Transportation has closed the interstate between Livingston and Park City near Billings due to blizzard conditions. Lanes are closed in both directions. Let's take a look. These are just some of the images from MDT's highway cameras along I-90 near Livingston. You can see whiteout conditions, snow blowing across the roadway, ice on the roadway. It is difficult to see right now. The road there closed, of course, due to issues like wrecks and slide-offs. Officials saying they will update us as we learn more about when the road will reopen, including some issues with semi-trucks today as well. For the latest on all of this, we've got meteorologist Miller Robson standing by.
Yes, our next winter storm is upon us. It's dumping a lot of snow across the area. You can see we've got some of those road conditions out there. Even if the roads aren't shut down in your area, just be mindful that we've got slick roads. Also the sidewalks out there, if you're out there walking, of course, blowing snow with visibility issues. And this is what the Doppler looks like right now as the snow continues to come down. This is what it looked like over the last 6 hours, just to give you an idea of the flow as this trough comes through. Not only do we have the snow, but it's a bit cooler today, too. And this is not the coldest air yet. We've got a big blast of Arctic air coming in the early part of next week. We'll show you that here in just a bit. But visibility is a big issue going on right now. You can see some areas down to a half a mile or even less than that with the snow coming down and with the blowing snow. So just traveling all across the region, not very good right now. You can see we do have those winter storm warnings and advisories in effect. We'll break this all down for you coming up with the main forecast. Stick around.
As this next system brings fresh snow, many still planning to go out on the roads today. And of course, we know all across the state, road conditions are treacherous. But our MTN's Cassidy Powers talked to police about what they do if they catch people driving recklessly in these conditions.
If you were driving around Bozeman on Wednesday, you probably saw a lot of this and a lot of this, and you could have even seen this. A video on Facebook that's caused a stir, which raises the question, how reckless do drivers get when the snow starts falling?
Pedal to the metal, and they're just...
Were you guys out and about driving yesterday?
Sure were.
Yep. For Aiden, Sage, and most folks around town, they agree. Road conditions were less than ideal Wednesday.
It was not great, pretty wide out. I saw several people slide off the road.
Yeah, I was driving on East Valley Center and you couldn't even really see the road.
While most people were trying to stay on the road safely, others not so much. There's this video going around of someone kind of fishtailing down Main Street.
Yeah, I saw that. It's not smart. You could cause accidents, like they said in the Facebook post, that somebody slid off the road behind them because they almost got hit by them.
And I was curious, how often do Bozeman police see this kind of driving in dangerous snowy conditions?
Fortunately, not very often. As a law enforcement officer, if I were to see somebody that in my capacity, I would absolutely stop them, and we would at the very least have a conversation about how unsafe that is.
Lieutenant Ben King was on duty Wednesday during the storm. He tells me on top of reckless driving, there was a number of accidents.
We had about 13 before we instituted what we call our limited crash response protocol.
According to Bozeman Police Facebook page, that protocol went into effect around 2 p.m. Wednesday. King tells me there were many more accidents to follow. This protocol goes into effect when the number of accidents exceeds the number of officers available. But I was curious, who do officers respond to first in these situations?
Our protocol includes an automatic response for crashes with disabling damage to a vehicle, injury, or the report of a DUI driver.
Some folks may have been frustrated Wednesday if they didn't receive help from police. To this, King hopes drivers can keep in mind resources are limited, which means if you were frustrated about drivers like this,
and they're just the biggest idiots I've ever seen,
and the fact they didn't get pulled over,
I can completely understand frustration, especially if we went as reported all the way down Huffine. Our officers were simply busy. Unfortunately, there were none available.
For Aiden and Sage, they say here in Montana, people will play around with their cars in the snow regardless. So if you're gonna do it,
Go on the back roads up to highlight, stuff like that, where there's not as much traffic or people.
In Bozeman, Cassidy Powers, MTN News.
And in our leading look today, the Montana House endorsed a bill that would create a new criminal offense while driving under the influence. The new charge, aggravated vehicular homicide, would mean the driver had a blood alcohol level at least twice the legal limit or is driving while their license is suspended from a previous DUI. The legislation is called Bobby's Law after Bobby Debris. Debris was hit and killed by a drunk driver outside of Columbia Falls in 2023. And also at the legislature, the Montana House has given initial approval to 2 bills aimed at providing residents with property tax relief. House Bill 231, the homestead tax bill, would lower tax rates on most Montanans' primary residences, long-term rentals, and small businesses. However, it would raise rates on other residential and commercial properties. Meanwhile, the House also passed one House Bill 155 that would establish a graduated tax rate and would spread out the tax burden by charging a higher rate as a home's value increases. Both bills will now go to the House Appropriations Committee. And emotions ran high Thursday at the legislature on the Montana Senate floor as members approved a motion that would delay the Senate Ethics Committee's investigation into a former Senate president. MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Ambarian has more on the latest twist in this case involving Senator Jason Ellsworth.
A split in the Senate Republican caucus and allegations against Senator Jason Ellsworth have led to tensions throughout the first month of the 69th session. And on Thursday, those tensions erupted on the Senate floor. By a 27-22 vote, senators approved a motion by Senator Pat Flowers, the chamber's Democratic minority leader, to refer the allegations against Ellsworth to the Montana Department of Justice and delay the Senate Ethics Committee investigation set for hearings as soon as next week. Ellsworth has been accused of not following the proper procedure when approving a state contract late last year. The motion was supported by the 18 Senate Democrats and the 9 Republicans who have broken with their party leadership on rules votes since the start of the session. It came after Senate GOP leaders announced they would hold a vote Friday on whether to remove Ellsworth from the Senate Finance and Claims Committee. Flowers said the ethics process within the Senate had become too politicized, and that since the accusations against Ellsworth have included potential criminal conduct, it was proper for a prosecutor to look into them.
I understand the frustration, but the reality is we are not looking away from what has been alleged. We are putting it in the hands of the rightful entity to fully investigate and prosecute as needed. And we also have left the door open when that investigation is completed for it to come back to our ethics committee here and take our appropriate action following that.
Republicans who opposed the motion said this wasn't the proper role for the Department of Justice. After the vote, a number of them said they were angry and embarrassed by a decision that they argued would sweep ethics concerns under the rug.
You guys just said, hopefully I'll look at every one of you, you all just said ethics doesn't matter anymore to us. That's what you said.
All 50 of us have seen probably what the worst of politics looks like. And you all know what part you played in this.
A spokesperson for the Department of Justice told MTN Thursday that they will review the referral when they receive it, but that it's too soon to comment further. The issues that boiled up on Thursday could be on display again on Friday. Senator Daniel Emmerich said Thursday that he plans to make a motion calling for Ellsworth's expulsion from the Senate at that time. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Copper prices are up and the grade of copper is expected to go up in Butte. MTN's John Amy gives us an update on the state of copper mining in Montana.
Copper continues to remain well over $4 a pound, which is good news for Montana Resources here in Butte. And those earth movers behind me, they're about 80 feet away from some of the highest grade copper Butte has ever seen, which is good news for those in the mining industry here in the mining city.
Everybody's excited about getting there. The team out in the pit has exceeded expectations. They have just hit it hard
This vein of copper is located on the far east end of the Montana Resources property and can be seen from I-90 north. It contains a very high grade of copper, and the company will be able to produce more of it. The company moved about 54 million pounds of copper last year, but they expect to move more than 70 million pounds of this high-grade copper.
And we'll be in that for a few years. So we'll see copper pound production beginning later in the year go up for about the next 3 years.
Montana Resources is also relieved plans have been delayed about imposing tariffs on Canadian imports. The company does about 60% of its business with a smelter in Quebec, and if Canada imposed tariffs on American goods, it would have an effect.
With our business model, we could pivot if we needed to. If all of a sudden there was a problem with tariffs and Canada decided not to accept copper concentrates, we could pivot and ship it someplace else.
The average copper price for this year is expected to be at $4.14 per pound and over $18 for molybdenum. In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.